If you were worried that there weren't enough unique ideas in gaming, just wait till you play Slitterhead. This horror action game is a debut title from the newly established Bokeh Game Studios, headed by Silent Hill, Siren, and Gravity Rush creator Keiichiro Toyama. Given this new indie budget and smaller team, Bokeh had the freedom to create a new IP, so I find it fitting that the team stuck to the horror genre. However, I'd say Slitterhead expands past the label of simply horror as it grounds itself in its characters and narrative to keep the player engaged and entertained, but the combat could use some more depth. Slitterhead is not going to be a game for everyone, but that shouldn't stop you from being interested in playing. The narrative of this adventure doesn't reveal its hand too quickly as you begin the game as a wandering spirit named Hyoki, who has seemingly forgotten his memories but quickly discovers that he has the power to possess living beings. This kind of makes up the opening hour as you possess various NPCs and couple up a bunch of random exposition dumps. Sadly, the opening is pretty messy. It almost showcases the lowest points of this experience. However, after meeting a unique NPC named Julie, the adventure starts to find its footing and some complex narrative threads are introduced, making you want to continue down this rabbit hole even after a rocky opening. Julie is known as a rarity, which in this world of Slitterhead means that she has access to a unique weapon and abilities. Throughout the game, several other rarities join your cause, but we'll get to that later. The main narrative has Hyoki investigating strange murders around Kowloon. Over the course of a few days, this city becomes more and more aware of a strange plague where humans turn into hideous creatures. What began as the Slitterhead rumor quickly becomes reality for this group as they gear up to stop the spread of this plague and find some answers as to what the heck Hyoki even is. The narrative here works within its means. Nothing is attempted to expand past the budget of this game, but that also might have ended up hurting the delivery of specific scenes. While the main cinematics do have some voiceover, most of this game doesn't. This is a pretty big setback given that the narrative often goes to some dark places, and I would have loved for that to be conveyed through voiceovers, not just these weird grunts. One mission in particular starring Alex has him investigating a doctor in town who might be connected to a case. The mission ended with a rather emotional fight, but as the player, I actually didn't feel anything. However, following each mission, Hyoki is able to talk to characters during an intermission to find the next mission, and it was actually here that a quick conversation with Alex revealed that he's very shaken up by the entire thing, which added context to that mission that we just got through. We see this man struggling with what he just did, and that actually made the events that happened more impactful to me. I'd say the way Slitterhead handles its characters and narrative pacing is unlike any modern games that I've played. The writing stays on topic, but also isn't afraid to have light dialogue to flesh out the relatability and understanding of this group. The character Anita, who worked as a prostitute before joining the crew, struggles with trust, but throughout the game you get to see her character evolve and maybe get some revenge. I wouldn't say any of this is handled with grace, but it is handled, and it kept me invested in these characters' mission. If anything, Slitterhead knows how to keep you entertained, whether that be by introducing time travel as a new ability for Hyoki or putting you in a mission that is more designed as a puzzle. This game doesn't waste time explaining the why. It's here to tell a story and entertain, and on that front, I think the mission structure and characters do more than enough. Again, when considering the budget. So let's get into the gameplay, which will likely be the most divisive aspect of this adventure. First off, this is not a traditional horror game. The horror here is more out of shock from the narrative twists or somebody eating a child in front of you or something. Still, the game has a lot of layers. One of the most used systems across the mission is possession. This allows you to possess any NPC and use them to attack or get through the mission. It's fairly evident while playing that out of all the systems in this game, this team spent the most time perfecting possession, and it shows with how well and fluid it works. You can bring two rarities into a mission, but more often than not you'll have to possess an NPC to either progress a plot thread or get past security, but each mission has a bit of variety to it. Sorry, but here's another point about the budget and how this team made the right moves. No missions are ever really alike. While they incorporate some of the same concepts of chasing an enemy or gathering information, subtle differences relieve any exhaustion you might feel heading into the next mission from the base menu. I was eager to jump into whatever was in store for me, and I was impressed by how varied the game made this feel. There are even light puzzles where you need to utilize the possession mechanic in unique ways to get past enemies. However, this brings me to the game's biggest downfall, the combat. While there is some variety in how combat is approached, depending on which character or NPC you're possessing, nothing ever really works out like it should. There are some cool ideas found in the abilities. For example, using Alex allows you to use his blood pool ability to group up enemies, which can be followed up with possessing an NPC for a kamikaze attack, but the fights don't always require this approach. Most of the time you can get by with simple melee attacks and perfect blocking. The lock-on feature also takes some time getting used to, as it requires you to hold the button, which also is the block button and makes the character strafe. It's an awkward setup that becomes the most dull aspect of the entire experience. If this was evolved, I'd like for more fights to require you to use the abilities. Most enemies attempt to surround you, with bosses being in your face at all times, which doesn't allow for much ability creativity. There's also not a large variety of enemies to fight against, and if you do manage to perfect block enough, you are able to slow down time, so there's a little bit of depth at least. The other systems include a pretty straightforward upgrade system that allows you to add skill points to characters' base stats and abilities, but there's nothing really unique about that. There are also ways to unlock costumes by taking on difficult trials hidden in stages. These are much easier towards the end of the game, so if you're having trouble with them, it is possible to return, because you can time travel in this game. There are also hidden memories scattered around the stages that grant more skill points, but outside of this, the entire game is relatively easy to grasp. Slitterhead is an example of a developer with some ambitious and creative ideas working within their means and focusing on the most fun aspects of the experience. Here, where one system falters, there's another there to lift the load. While more budget would have likely improved the combat, this is ultimately a game about characters and their struggles of accepting this new reality while also dealing with events that shaped their personality. And there's no telling how much better that story could have been conveyed with full voice acting. Regardless if Slitterhead has anything to say about what to expect from this developer in the future, we are in for some truly unique video games. Noisy Pixel is giving Slitterhead a 7 out of 10. Thanks for watching. This video is brought to you by our supporters on Patreon. Noisy Pixel is run by a group of gamers providing independent gaming coverage through news, reviews, previews, and more. Check out our Patreon to help support our continued growth, and subscribe to keep up with all our future content.